think it's really important to share the message that our traditional healthcare system needs to be deemed an essential service.
Tonight, continuing cultural ceremonies under COVID restrictions.
They're not out in the community, and when they are here, they have to wear masks. That was instituted in the past few weeks with the cases of COVID coming up in Nunavut.
And managing a medical home for traveling patients during the pandemic. Good evening, welcome to APTN National News. I'm Dennis Ward. There's a ribbon skirt controversy brewing in small town Saskatchewan. It happened after a teacher's aide told a grade 5 student her Indigenous clothing wasn't considered formal wear. Our digital reporter Kathleen Martins is on the story and joins me with more details. Kathleen, thanks for being with us. How did this controversy get started?
Well, it was something called Formal Day at a school in Kamsack, Saskatchewan, rural Saskatchewan, and everyone decided they were going to dress up. The whole school was going to dress up that day. So the Indigenous girls decided amongst themselves they'll wear their ribbon skirts.
And so what happened here?
Well, what happened was 10-year-old Bella Kulu went to school wearing her ribbon skirt, and a teacher's aide in her grade 5 class took her aside and said, first of all, your clothes don't match, and secondly, that's not formal wear. Look over there, that's formal wear. So I'm going to let you listen to the dad explain to me what happened.
Makes me sick. You tell my daughter her traditional wear isn't good enough and then point at someone with a Walmart outfit on like it's something special. And it's not.
And so, Kathleen, he sounds very upset, obviously. What can you tell us about that?
Oh, my heart just goes out to him and his wife and their children. He's struggling, he wants to get a hold of his anger and do something good with it. He doesn't want to have another woman shamed the way his daughter was shamed. He knows social media things can get, people are outraged, upset. He doesn't want that. He wants education. He wants reconciliation.
And so what is the school division saying about this?
They agree. They say a mistake was made, and more than a mistake, an error in judgment. It created a problem when it shouldn't have. So they've talked to the family at length. They are going to bring in some education. They think it's a really important teachable moment. They're going to bring in more education about Indigenous issues, including ribbon skirts and ribbon shirts. And there'll be more information. I've talked to more people in the community about this in my story on our website. That's aptnnews.ca.
And Kathleen, you mentioned, that outrage. What does the community have to say about this?
There's 3 First Nations that surround Kamsack, and they want to show their support in a really positive way for Bella. They're going to gather outside the school on the morning of January 4th when the kids come back after the Christmas break. They're going to wear their ribbon skirts. They're going to have a drum group, and they hope that Indigenous girls wear their ribbon skirts back to school. And it doesn't have to be formal day. Any day is a good day to wear a ribbon skirt.
Well, that sounds like an amazing show of support for her. Kathleen, we appreciate you taking some time to talk to us here about this.
My pleasure. Thanks, Dennis.
And as Kathleen mentioned, you can find more on that story over on our website, aptnnews.ca. With the global pandemic, many people are turning to traditional ceremonies and medicines to help get them through it. Priscilla Wolf met up with one man who says ceremonies are crucial during these times.
As the pandemic continues into the new year, being able to go to ceremonies is more important than ever. Andre Baer, the liaison for the Confederacy of Treaty 6, believes it's important for him to continue going to ceremonies. He posted on Facebook that traditional First Nations ceremonies should be exempt from public health orders regarding COVID. I'm tired of sneaking around to every sweat lodge where people are afraid of getting fined. He believes that traditional ceremonies aren't just important, they're part of Indigenous healthcare.
The issue at hand is something that is important to Indigenous peoples across Canada. So I think it's really important to share the message that our traditional healthcare system needs to be deemed an essential service by the government, not only the federal, but the provincial governments, and hopefully our chiefs and councils as well.
Right now in Saskatchewan, indoor public gatherings and worship gatherings are limited to 30 people, and many First Nation communities have their own lockdowns and restrictions. He thinks people should be able to practice their ceremonies without fear of breaking COVID restriction rules.
To me, it makes no sense as to why we need to hide today to practice our ceremonies, because I know stories. I'm actually one of those people that had to hide in the side of a trunk to get to a sweat lodge.
Indigenous Services Canada stated that they ask that people maintain social distancing as much as possible if they go to ceremonies. Their email statement reads, Indigenous Services Canada recognizes the importance and sacred nature of cultural ceremonies. In light of the risk to health and safety of COVID-19, First Nations leaders and ceremonial organizers are encouraged to consider public health guidelines in their respective provinces and territories before they proceed. Baer also points out that the right to hold ceremonies already exists.
The highest law in Canada is their constitution, and our rights are already recognized and affirmed under Section 35 of them. And if one of our rights happen to be our ceremonies, to me, it makes no sense as to why we need to hide today to practice our ceremonies.
Baer says he will keep practicing his culture and going to ceremonies like sweats and sundances.
If I get fined for going and seeking healing from my own traditional healthcare system, that's not okay. And that's something that in Canada today, as soon as possible, we need to change.
Priscilla Wolf, APTN National News, Saskatoon.
Well, we'd like to hear what you think about allowing ceremonies to continue during the pandemic. Here's how to reach out. You can send your emails to news@aptn.ca or leave a comment on aptnnews.ca. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and now TikTok. You can follow APTN News to join the conversation and see our latest stories. Community members and essential workers entering 4 First Nation fly-in communities in Manitoba will now be tested before they enter the community. Garden Hill, Red Sucker Lake, Wasagamak, and St. Teresa Point in Manitoba will have more than 1,000 rapid COVID-19 tests available to be used on those coming from Winnipeg. The Four Arrows Regional Health Authority will conduct tests in Winnipeg for those deemed essential, which includes community members in Winnipeg for medical reasons returning home and healthcare workers entering the island lakes. People will be tested and will have results back in minutes, thanks to the purchase of 2 digital analyzers. While they only started testing this past weekend, the executive director for Four Arrows wishes they could have started sooner.
We've only started ours over the weekend, and that wasn't for lack of trying. That was just, again, jurisdictional issues and trying to work out a process of where we could do that on our own and exercising our own sovereignty as First Nations people to provide that service for our own people. And of course, we did it at the instruction of our leadership in the communities.
COVID-19 is also changing the way medical boarding homes operate, but the need for health services remains the same. Even after the Nunavut and Northwest Territories travel bubble burst, many still need to travel to Yellowknife for appointments. Charlotte Moore Jacobs takes a look at the essential workers pressing on during the pandemic.
It's a lot of work staying informed on the ever-changing COVID-19 health and safety measures.
What community are you doing first?
And Casey Adlam is the one for the job, adapting services for the Northwest Territories Inuit Medical Boarding Home.
You know, we've instituted people signing in, signing out, security at the front door. People are reduced to only going out for emergency items or to their appointments. They're not out in the community, and when they are here, they have to wear masks. That was instituted in the past few weeks with the cases of COVID coming up in Nunavut.
Larga Katupnio in Yellowknife is home for all medical patients traveling from Western Nunavut. This client is having her fourth baby.
Some of the smaller things, people have to come to Yellowknife for all of their medical appointments, basically. Most of the communities that we serve in the Qitulmit region of Nunavut only have 2 or 3 nurses and a doctor that visits, you know, only every few months.
These days, it's quiet.
It was a big change for us. Culturally, I mean, I would walk into work every morning and everybody would be hugging and shaking hands and saying hello. It's part of the Inuit culture to do that. It's kind of like everybody's family.
Pandemic restrictions mean no visits in the common room, and all meals must be carried up to bedrooms.
It's been difficult because, you know, we've had a few elders over the past few weeks who've come and said, you know, I can't buy clothes at home. I don't have much for clothing. Can I go buy clothing? And we have to say no.
Yeah.
So, you know, it may be the one trip they get per year to come and get some of the essential items that they need, and they're not able to do that. So
all guests staying at Larga self-isolate during their stay.
if you have an elder who's unilingual, they need that escort to attend with them. So we may, first thing in the morning, have to find the clinic they're going to, get an exemption letter, get all of that in place before, you know, 8:30, so that that person can attend the appointment with the elder. So it's a bit of a scramble every day.
Although adjusting to health measures isn't easy, with Nunavut's 2 COVID-19 related deaths, Adlam says she hopes Canadians will recognize the social disparity Inuit face.
I think that's why people were so worried, and that's why our measures were so strict in terms of people returning to Nunavut, because they know that, I mean, my family, there's 7 or 8 people who live in a 2-bedroom home or more. So they look at situations like that, and I think maybe the country's getting a better idea of what Indigenous communities are struggling to overcome.
Charlotte Mort-Jacobs, APTN National News, Yellowknife.
Well, time now to step aside for a quick break. And as we head to break, here's a small sample of APTN's first ever Indigenous Day live winter solstice, airing all this week on APTN. Welcome back. In a recent deal with the province of Quebec, the Grand Council of the Crees of Quebec are announcing further protected lands in their territory. The Grand Alliance is a memorandum of understanding signed in February between the province and the Crees of Quebec. Originally, the deal saw 12% of Quebec land protected from development. Now that area has been increased to meet Quebec's target of 17% of the province protected, which equals over 23% of Cree territory. Grand Chief Abel Bozum says the deal will help protect the land and wildlife, like the endangered woodland caribou.
When Plan Nord was originally announced back in 2015, the The objective back then was to protect 50% of the area from non-industrial development. And, quite an ambitious plan at the time. And so we took advantage of that and submitted what we called a Cree conservation strategy. And it was a list of areas that we thought needed protection.
For the past 8 years, Bernadette Smith and Nahani Fontaine, now NDP MLAs in Manitoba, have put together a Christmas dinner for families of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls called Santa's Coming. This year, of course, because of COVID, they couldn't, but still wanting families to know they're thinking of them, volunteers put together hampers instead. CTV's Scott Anderson was there during the drop-off.
So we have 125 hampers that we're delivering today to families. Lots of community volunteers today are delivering those to families, and we just wanted to bring some cheer and some love and to let families really know that they're cared for and that we haven't forgotten them.
Holy moly, someone's going to be happy.
For the last 2 weeks, our grade 9 students at Windsor Park Collegiate have been looking at social justice issues in Canada, and in particular, the issue of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls and two-spirited people. Each one of our grade 9 students was given a pattern, fabric, scissors, needle, and thread, and they actually hand-stitched each one of these stockings. Things like a Kleenex, little games, little puzzles, candy. We've got really important that we do these things for these families, simply to honor those that we've lost.
Like, families often feel like they're alone, especially at these difficult times, and especially during COVID, when they can't get the support that they need, that they can't go and gather with other families who are experiencing the same thing. And it's especially difficult, when you're setting that plate at that table and that person isn't there. This isn't just an Indigenous issue, this isn't just a women's issue, but this is a human issue, and that everyone should care and everyone should get involved. Stand up against violence. We need to end this.
Great, they managed to keep the tradition going during this COVID-19 pandemic. Time to step aside for one more quick break, but before we do, here again is just a sample of what you can see when you tune in to APTN's Indigenous Day Live Winter Solstice. It's happening every day this week. Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. This one comes from Val Kirby, who captured this early morning sundog ring near Amaranth. That's in central Manitoba, north of Portage La Prairie. The unique phenomenon occurs when sunlight refracts through icy clouds. Driven that road a few times. Well, we want to thank our viewers for sending in these great photos. Be sure to send your photos to share@aptn.ca for a chance to be our next photo of the day. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Starting on the East Coast, +4 with snow in Charlottetown, -1 and showers in St. John's. 5 below with a rain-snow mix for Nain, snow and -1 in Cartwright. -2 with snow for Montreal, a rain-snow mix, and 11 below in Chibougamau. +5 with snow for Toronto, -6 and flurries in Sault Ste. Marie. 14 below for Thunder Bay, -8 in Sioux Lookout. -25 in Churchill, 26 below for Norway House and God's Lake. -4 with flurries in Winnipeg, -20 below for Dauphin. -12 in Regina, 0 for North Battleford. -14 in Meadow Lake, 23 below in La Ronge. Over in northern Alberta, 0 for Peace River, +1 in Grand Prairie. -5 in Medicine Hat, -2 for Edmonton. +4 under sunny skies for Vancouver, 1 degree warmer in Victoria. -1 with snow for Smithers, -15 in Fort Nelson. -22 with snow in Old Crow, snow, and 0 for Whitehorse. -22 in Fort Simpson and Yellowknife, 19 below in Norman Wells. -20 with snow for Nuvik, 21 below for Colville Lake. -30 for Chesterfield and Whale Cove, 31 below in Baker Lake. -30 in Resolute and Joe Haven. Well, California firefighters may have saved Christmas after rescuing Santa Claus. Officials say a Santa Claus impersonator got tangled in power lines shortly after taking off with his glider-like aircraft. The man says he was delivering candy canes to children before getting stuck. Power had to be shut off, and the good news is Santa Claus was not injured. Well, just in time for Christmas, we have a very merry encore airing of Face to Face tonight with Don Amaro. Don talks about how lucky he is that music became his outlet.
All my friends in the neighborhood, I grew up here in the north end of Winnipeg, and high poverty and a lot of brokenness in a lot of homes in that area that I lived in. They would get into gangs, drugs, alcohol, violence, all that kind of thing, and I could see those as dead-end roads, and again, I was just blessed with that foresight. But music very quickly became my vice. It became the thing that I leaned on, and like I said to you earlier, like whenever I go through something emotional, my response is to write about it and write a song about it. And, I realized that became my therapy and my outlet. And
My hair, I miss getting haircuts. Well, you can catch that episode in just a few minutes. Don performs 3 of his favorite Christmas songs during the show. And Don, of course, is also part of this week's Indigenous Day Live Winter Solstice. You can still see him perform this Thursday and Friday here on APTN. That is all the time we have for your APTN National News for this Tuesday. For news anytime, visit our website, aptnnews.ca, and never miss a story by downloading the APTN News app. I'm Dennis Ward. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great night.